For all the car guys, you already know what the title is going to be about, but for the non-car people watching, I'll briefly clarify. No, it's not going to be about queens as in people. The term queen is a really common thing that car guys will use to refer to cars that have been babied too much. Look, just watch the video and you'll quickly catch on to what I mean. So here are 4 types of car queens. Starting the video off is the most well-known one, the garage queen. A garage queen typically refers to a car that spends an excessive amount of time in the garage, being weeks to even months on end. The easiest way to spot a garage queen is to look at its mileage and compare it to the length of ownership. The most common types of garage queens are rare collector cars, and this usually includes high-end exotics or prestigious luxury cars. The second most common type of garage queen are classic cars, especially ones that are in the process of being resto modded, which that is not used in a negative connotation, more on that later. Do keep in mind that even if a car doesn't fall in those 2 aforementioned categories, that's not going to stop it from being garage queened. People have and will garage queen virtually anything, even relatively common cars. I'm sure they'll garage queen a lawnmower if they can. So Mustangs, Corvettes, WRXs, even Toyota Celicas, people will garage queen the simplest of cars. We'll get there. First, let's talk about the rare collector cars and exotics. Those, as much as I hate to admit it, make sense to garage queen because they tend to appreciate and they're going to go up in value, especially based on their rarity and how well kept they are. So there's actually an incentive to not drive the car, as sad as that is. The second one does have a happier ending, which is classic cars. For classic cars, garage queening is usually just a phase that cannot be avoided. For example, people who enjoy resto modding or building classic cars will usually buy a cheap, abused classic, and they have to garage queen it because it's not in running condition yet, so it's going to sit in the garage for several months as they build it. And eventually the end goal is to make it run competently enough to ascend to weekend warrior or showcase car, so it will definitely see the light of day. It's going to go on roads, even road trips. Of course, that is to say that there is somewhat a sad side to this story, which is that not every resto mod is going to graduate from this phase. In the hands of inexperienced or financially incompetent builders, their resto mod project will forever be stuck in the garage queen phase, therefore that's when it's used as an insult for them. Now that we've covered the 2 most common instances where garage queening is understandable, let's address the final one that I mentioned. The people who are part of the I garage queen a normal car category. It's one thing if you have another daily. I can kind of see why you only use your Mustang or Corvette on the weekend, and that's okay because that's a weekend warrior. That's way different than a garage queen. Garage queens are lucky if they even get driven every weekend, much less like twice a month. There's this article of someone who bubble wrapped his C6 ZR1 the moment he drove it home from the dealership. Literally just never drove it again. And you know what the saddest part about that is? The car still depreciated. So not only did he lose out on the emotional value of driving the car and making memories of it, he lost actual monetary value as well. Imagine that. The owners of garage queens, or this kind of garage queening I should say, are obsessed with the wrong kind of perfection. They expect their car to be flawless forever, and I've heard them discuss sorrowfully about how over time their car is going to lose power if they drive it, therefore they don't. That the more mileage it gets, it's going to reduce the value, therefore they don't. That each rock chip the car gets, the paint is less perfect, therefore they don't. It's tragic. They don't own the car owns them. Dyno Queen. A Dyno Queen is a car that is built solely to achieve high figures on a dyno. This term isn't really used to describe individual car guys, but rather for the achievement of tuner shops, so like an actual group of car guys. So there are 2 main reasons why tuner shops would do this. The first one is actually a good reason, which is if they just want to test out a new configuration without damaging their current show or competition car. Tuner shops love using Dyno Queens for experimental reasons, if they want to push more power than they ever have before, but if they have a big race just over the horizon, it's really unlikely they're going to risk blowing up their actual car scheduled for competition, and instead they're going to relegate that duty to the designated Dyno Queen in the shop. If the Dyno Queen blows up, no harm, no foul, because it's not needed to run at a deadline, much less run in general. That's just the car that tests things out. However, if the Dyno Queen survives and even thrives on the new tune after several trials and experiments, then that's perfect. Now they know that they can safely put it on their competition car without risking it not making the deadline. but they also save money, and the reason that is because the actual competition car is going to be a fully built car, because that's the one that's expected to actually hit the racetrack. That means it's going to have suspension work, sway bars, cooling, tires, and so on. That's a really expensive vehicle that you don't want to constantly put on the risk of blowing up. While these cars will eventually hit the dyno, because no doubt they have to get tuned, for things that are extremely experimental or in the works, that's why the Dyno Queen is such a valuable asset, because it's not fully built. Now that we've covered the good reason, here's the bad reason that Dyno Queens exist: bragging rights. So, a professional shop will use a Dyno Queen as an experimental outlet, as I discussed, but beginner shops will use them as halo cars, or as an excuse to prove their prowess. To illustrate these two mindsets, here's an example. Let's start with an experienced shop. If they get a Dyno Queen to make 2200 horsepower, but it blows up right after the run, they're not going to count that as a success. They're going to write that down and be like, okay, why did it fail? They're going to analyze why it failed, and they have to force themselves to continue to build the car until it can handle the power for the actual competition day. And then they'll transfer it over to their competition car and actually win a race before finally considering it an achievement. Then they're going to start plastering it on their shop walls, on their website, and most importantly, using it as a tool for advertising to their customers, to kind of tell their customers, hey, this is a car we've made, this is the level of quality you can expect from coming to us. And that's also just in general a good level of quality control they're practicing, because it's always better for them to blow up their car instead of putting experimental stuff on customers' cars. Meanwhile, a beginner shop only looks at numbers with no care for the duration, competition, or aftermath. If the screen says 2,200 horsepower, it doesn't matter what happens next to them. If the whole entire shop goes up in flames, 2,200 means 2,200, brother. So they'll immediately start advertising it to customers with their edited YouTube video where they crop out the explosion. And they'll start putting advertisements that say, man, we can get your car to XXXX amount of horsepower, and we'll charge much less than those arrogant big boys. There's a reason why big name shops charge as much as they do. I know it's heroic to support the local guys starting in the industry, but when you cheer for underdogs, you've got to find the honest ones. And I'm not naive enough to sit here and tell you guys that everyone in this world is honest and golden. Some people want the easy way up, and they're going to leave a trail of despair on their climb up, and you can be one of their victims if you don't do proper research. The easiest way to spot posers is if those shops never keep their mouth shut about their big figures, but when race day comes, total silence and they're no-show. Because these noob shops, their Dyno Queens can't actually handle its power, it could just barely make it. Making power and maintaining power aren't the same thing. The gap in talent is massive between the two. Any schmuck can make a car fast, but it doesn't matter if the car isn't fast for long. You see what I mean? Doing something for bragging rights won't get you trophies, and they definitely will not get you long-term customers. Reaching that checkered flag will. Pavement Princess. The title may say queens, but where you'll find queens, you'll find their princesses too. And the Pavement Princess is a rather controversial title. It is used to define a car that is traditionally off-road ready, and they convert it into something that's undrivable to the point that it needs the most perfect of road conditions and the most perfect of weather conditions. For example, converting a rugged Jeep, truck, or rally car into a prissy Pavement Princess that will never be driven if there is so much a cloud in the sky. And before some 12-year-olds start misusing this phrase, no, it does not apply to cars that are already designated to the pavement from factory. So cars like my Z06, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, most sports cars, supercars, and exotic cars cannot be on the receiving end of this insult because they're designed for pavement to begin with. It's not an insult to be a pavement princess for them, it's the expected use of their design. The only time Pavement Princess is used as an insult is when people go out of their way to render off-road vehicles inherently useless. Like, more useless than an exotic on-road. I wasn't kidding when I said that some of these princesses need the most perfect of roads. I've seen 32-inch wheels with massive deep dish setups and an extremely thin tire sidewalls. Like, deep dish wheels may look cool, and I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but there's a reason why wheels are designed the way they are and why center bores are called center bores. But if you offset it too much to one side, then the barrel and lip become much more prone to bending from the sinus bumps and potholes. To illustrate my point, here's a bridge. With the support in the center, the bridge will be rigid and balanced. Weather, usage, and other stress will not destroy it at an advanced rate. Now imagine if the support of the bridge was only to one side. Now it's going to be off balance and far more susceptible to stress and break-in from both environment and vehicle usage. Now this isn't a generalization. I'm not saying all lifted truck owners are pavement princesses. The easiest way to tell is to just look at how it's built. Proper off-road vehicles or work trucks will have thick sidewall tires, strong wheels with durable spoke designs, and suspension that's definitely seen some work, and they're just going to generally have grime and rock chips around the vehicle. Now before moving on, a huge misconception I want to address is that just because a car is clean, that doesn't mean it's a pavement princess. Even people who off-road their cars, they're not heathens, you know? They still wash their car occasionally, whether it's for car shows or if it's just to prevent rust. It's one thing to obsess over every little paint imperfection. That's what pavement princesses do. But to hate rust, for the sake of resale value and longevity, even hardcore off-road people, they're gonna still do the bare minimum of paint upkeep to protect their car. You see the difference now? And finally, to finish this video off, the mall queen, or mall cruiser. They mean the same thing. This has been a term since as long as cars and malls have been around, and it's understandable. So you've got yourself a nice flashy car, right? Chances are you want to show it off, and the best place is always at your local gathering place. The more eyes, the better, right? In all seriousness, not every car that you see at a mall is automatically a mall cruiser. Even I have to take Leone to the mall every now and then. The only time mall queen starts to become a bit more of an insult is if you're there at the mall a bit too much, to the point, and I'm straight up not talking about someone who leaves their car in the parking lot, because they might work there. The most telltale sign of a mall queen is when someone is literally just cruising and perusing about the perimeter, like deadass making laps around the mall. Whereas most car guys obsessed over exotics lap times around the Nürburgring, these mall queens obsessed over heads turned each lap around the mall. That's why younger generations have started to call them mall cruisers, as that title seemed more fitting since that's exactly what they're doing. You know what, forget taking a car to the place where it belongs, out there on open country roads, roaring about, singing loud enough to pierce the heavens and make the angels weep. Nah fam, it's all about flexing at all the scrub lords at the local Macy's. Anyways, I hope you guys had a lot of fun with this video. That's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more car content. Other than that, see y'all next time. Bladed Angel out.